Hey friends, it's Sarah here, and a few people have been asking me to make sort of like a tips video on how to get better as Mercy, like how they can improve their gameplay kind of thing. So I decided to give a little insight on how I play her and what I have learned from playing her. Now, many people may not agree with me, and everyone has their own preferences on how they want to play. This video is just strictly my opinion and how I play her. Now, I kind of broke it down into 6 different categories. There's settings, healing, positioning, ulting, fighting back, and team fighting. So the first one being settings. If you go into the options menu and you click on controls, you can adjust a bunch of different things that can affect your gameplay, such as sensitivity, your reticle type, movement, and other stuff. If you click on the tab in the top right, you can customize settings for each character. For me, I play at a high sensitivity for Mercy because I'm not really aiming to land shots on people. I just found this easier for me for like quickly turning around to people behind me and easier to switch from person to person. If you scroll down, you'll notice there is an option to toggle beam connection. What this does is it auto connects your beam to a teammate when you click, so you don't have to click and hold. Personally, I do not play with this setting. I find it easier to be in control of clicking on and off the person without the lock on. But again, this is just something you'd have to mess around with and see what best suits you. So secondly, we're going to get into healing. So one of the main things people struggle with when they don't main a healer is prioritizing who needs to be healed. When you're the only healer on your team, it's very important to quickly decide who is most important to heal if everyone's low. If there's a second healer, it's way easier. When you're playing Mercy as a solo healer, you're great at single target heals. Your priority should be, and no, some people might argue this, but your priority for me should be DPS over the tanks in some circumstances. If you notice one of your DPS is in critical and so is your tank, I would heal the DPS first. Reason one being tanks have more room for error. If a Ryan is sitting at a quarter health, he can still take a bit more damage and be fine. However, if your McCree is critical, there's very little room for error and he can just get one shot and die. Reason 2 being tanks take way longer to heal than a DPS. Majority of DPS characters have a health of 200. Mercy heals 20 health a second. So if you have a McCree on your team that's 40 health, it takes about 8 seconds to heal him to full. Meanwhile, majority of tanks have 300 to 600 health. It will take a lot longer to heal them fully. Leaving your DPS at a low health for a long time, it doesn't help the team much. So when solo healing and having to heal 5 people, I always heal the criticals first. If multiple people are critical, heal them until they're just out of the zone, switch to a different person, heal them until they're out of the critical zone, and then switch back and just kind of switch back and forth until everyone's full. Just sitting there and healing one person for excessive amounts of time can risk the life of the rest of your team. If you're standing there trying to heal a Reinhardt to full health, but 4 other people on your team are critical, they could all get wiped before the Reinhardt gets healed, and then you just threw the fight. Remember that little healing is better than no healing. And even giving someone like 40 health quickly before helping someone else who's in desperate need can actually help them a lot. If they're 1v1ing someone and if they take one more shot they die, but if you heal them just slightly enough for them to survive that one extra shot, so they can get the other shot and kill the other person, it just helps even if you heal them a little bit. If you have a second healer on your team, it's way less stressful. If you're paired with an Ana, her job is to heal the tanks. Ana's rifle can be tricky to hit smaller targets such as Genji or Tracer on your team, so your job as a Mercy to take care of them while the Ana takes care of the tanks, because of her strong heal of 75 a shot for 10 shots. If you're paired with a Lucio, his healing is not as strong for tanks. With his healing being only 12.5 a second, he's better off running around with the DPS while your job is to keep the tanks alive. But since Lucio's heal without Amp It Up is still fairly small, you may have to help a DPS if they're in dire need as well. If you're paired with a Zenyatta, his healing of 30 health per second is slightly higher than yours, but his orb can reach quite far, whereas your beam doesn't. Zenyatta is great for helping out a Tracer or Genji that's flanking their team and they start to get low. Your job is just best to stay behind your team and stay protected and stay with the tanks. Don't ever follow a Genji or Tracer as a Mercy while they're flanking unless you're 100% sure you can get out. Also, prioritize those who are in battle. If someone on your team is half health, but in a safe spot and can't be hit, don't ditch the person who is fighting to go help them. Keep people who are in the middle of the fight alive. Also, never risk your life to save someone who's out of position, like if a Reinhardt charges into the team and then dies in the backline. Don't risk your life to fly to him and save him. Their life is not as important as yours. So third, I have positioning. When it comes to positioning, I prefer to stay on high ground. But this isn't good for all cases. High ground allows your beam to reach down to the people below you and keeps you out of danger if the other team suddenly charges in and ults as a Reinhardt. Although, high ground sometimes isn't the best because it can keep you out in the open, allowing any flankers to get at you easily. If your beam is connected to someone and you walk behind a wall, it will remain attached to them for a couple seconds through the wall. You can use this to your advantage and stay hidden behind walls, under floors, above ground, and peek out every couple seconds just to keep the beam attached. When attached to someone, you will always fly to them, no matter who you're looking at. So always remember to disconnect your beam before flying to a different person to avoid flying in the wrong direction. But you can turn this off in the options menu along with the beam connection. One thing that many players aren't aware of is that you can cancel your Guardian Angel ability. When you fly to someone, you fly right to them and even slightly past them. This can put you in a super bad situation sometimes. If you hit shift or whatever button you use, again, after you're flying, it will stop the flight. What I do a lot of the time is I only fly about halfway to people, just long enough so my beam can reach. There's really no need to be directly beside the person you're healing. The beam has quite the range, so use it effectively by staying far back away from your team. You shouldn't be in the middle of any fight or not be where the majority of the team is. You should always stay in the back and keep yourself hidden. The fourth part I have is ulting. So Mercy's ult is huge. It can flip a battle when used in the right way, being able to bring back your allies if they get picked or wiped. Many Mercies I have seen tend to sit and wait for that hot play of the game 4-man res, and they forget about the simple res that can change the game as well. Saving your ult for big reses is good, but it's also better to res 2 or even 1 person if needed. Good one-man ults would be if you have only one tank and they die before the fight. If a tank dies and they have their ult, resing 1 person is really only good for tanks. Tanks are very important and their ults can be game changers. So if your tank gets picked before a fight, and only if the other team starts pushing in, it may be a good idea to single res the tank. Don't res the tank if the other team kills them, but just stands there and doesn't do anything with it. And don't waste your res on a DPS, especially a flanker like Tracer or Genji. Although Mercy gets her ult fairly quickly, it's not worth it. It is important to recognize what ults the enemy has. Now this requires lots of skill and playtime to be able to know who has ult and judge what percentage is at, but knowing what the enemy has for an ult is very important when deciding whether to res or not. If 3 people on your team is dead, and you know they blew all their ults, go res. But if 3 people died and they still have a lot of ults, it may not be worth it. Nothing sucks more than to res your whole team only for everyone to get wiped again. If the 3 people on your team who died have ults, you can res and hope to do a counter wipe. If 3 people died on point while you were defending, but all 6 of the enemies is there and they almost have the point, don't fly in and try to save the point when there's small little ticks left. Don't waste your res. Back off, let them take the point, reposition, and get ready for the next fight. Rushing in to res your team when the enemy already has the point or almost has the point is a waste for 2 reasons. If they capture the point, their spawn moves. So if you wipe them after they get it, they'll be back in a couple seconds because their spawn should be right there. If you res and you all die again, it just gives the team a free second point or one hell of a free push on a payload map. Or it just gives them ult charges if they use their ults in the previous fight. Be smart about your reses and think in the future, what will happen after I res? So for number 5, I have fighting back. As a Mercy player, you will be targeted by Winstons, Genjis, Tracers, and more. A lot of the time, if a flanker's on you, flying into your team can usually help out on getting their attention to help you. But sometimes you can't trust your team. Learning when to pull out your gun and try to defend yourself is useful. I've killed many Tracers and Genjis, and even Winstons who get on me. With Tracers and Genjis, it's easier to hit them up close. So instead of running away shooting, run into them and shoot. A lot of the time the other player will be like, "Why is this Mercy chasing me? What the hell?" and run away. Or you can just kill them and teabag them because they died to a Mercy. With Reapers, Winstons, Mays, stay at a distance and hope your aim is good enough. The best time to pull out your gun is when you know your team can't or won't help. If you get caught off to the side and you can't fly away, fight back. If your team just doesn't turn around to help, fight back. A lot of the time just flying into your team can help, but don't be completely defenseless and just keep running away. Fight back. And lastly, I have team fighting. So when it comes to team fights, the main question is when to heal versus when to hide. Every ult in the game has a specific sound or saying. So if you hear many ults going off by the other team, especially a Reinhardt, Zarya, Genji, Soldier, or any big team wiping ults, if you have res, get your butt out of there. I don't care if you have to run in a full circle behind the point to get away, or run into spawn on the second point of Temple of Anubis. Do not get caught in an ult. This goes with positioning as well. If you have good positioning, you will almost never get caught in a Zarya or Reinhardt ult. So when you have res, and you hear big ults going off, go hide or back off or run away. Although this isn't always the case. Sometimes you won't need to let your whole team die and get a good res. Sometimes you can keep them alive through it, such as if someone on their team ults and no one follows up. If Reinhardt charges in and ults all of you, but none of his teammates come along to back it up, you can heal your team through his damage. Same with a Zarya ult. You can out-heal a Soldier ult if he's not nano boosted. Just stay hidden from him. If you don't have res and 500 ults are going off, you stay there and you try to keep your team alive, because hiding without ult is useless. When your tanks are deep in the fight, you keep your beam on your tank to keep them alive. I don't care if Widow is behind you spamming need healing and she has half health. If your Reinhardt is fighting 86 people, heal him and only him. Your Rein or Diva or Winston can 1v3 or even 1v4 if you stick your beam on them and never let go. In the middle of a fight, if you let go for a couple seconds to heal someone else, your tank can die and you'll lose the fight. Prioritize those in need. The crouch and jump buttons are your best friend. Never, ever stand still. You don't have to aim your beam to move. So jump, crouch, move around. It makes it harder to hit you. If you ever see me play Mercy, I jump a ton. The more you move, the harder it is to hit you. Basically, your whole goal as Mercy is to stay alive and keep your team alive. If your team all starts dying, you better hide and get a good res in. So another little tip that applies to all healers, not just Mercy, is you want to be constantly looking around. You can see your allies' health through walls. If they're slightly damaged, it'll be yellow, it'll turn more red if they're critical, and then you'll see the critical symbol if they're in critical. Basically, you need to get used to constantly looking around, because there could be someone behind you at 2 health that could be sitting there forever, and if you never turn around, you're never going to heal them and they're gonna die eventually. So one thing you need to get used to is every few seconds I just do like a full 360. I look around to make sure I'm not missing anyone and that I'm always paying attention to everyone on my team. You have to have really, really good awareness when you're playing a healer. You have to know where your team is, what they're doing, and how you can help them out. So that's all I have for now. I'm sure I missed some things, and I'm sure many people have different opinions, but this is just how I play and how I learned to play just by playing her. If you have any other questions, you can leave a comment below and I'll answer them, but other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.